And Mike Golic Jr. joins us here on Big Board Sports. Good morning, Mike. Roger Weiland, Brian Mariano, the closer with you. Thanks for a few minutes.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, let's just start with the Super Bowl, right? Everybody talking about the matchup now. We got 2 weeks to hype. I always hate the 2 weeks because the first week it's like we got to calm down because next week we can really dive into this. But how about just your initial thoughts right now on a New England-Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl? You think it'll be highly entertaining and close?
I think so, yeah. I think that's the one benefit that we could sort of pluck out of a conference championship weekend that was pretty lackluster. I mean, the Falcons dispatched the Packers early enough in that game where it was an afterthought. The Patriots at least did us the courtesy of waiting a little while before they started their route with Pittsburgh. So I think what we saw are two teams, I think teams playing really complete football right now. The Falcons' defense of all these units is definitely the weakest one on paper coming into this and statistically during the regular season. But even them against a quarterback that was playing better than any quarterback in football over the stretch of the season towards the end in Aaron Rodgers, they showed up in a big way. They were able to get after him. They looked fast. We know they're young and talented, but they matched that with a hell of a performance on championship weekend. So looking forward to seeing now if they're up to an even bigger challenge in a New England offense that's led by another great veteran quarterback who's got a lot more to work with him in Chris Hogan. Who knew?
Yeah, we were talking about Chris Hogan earlier in the show. We had Paul Schwartz on, beat writer, New York Post, wrote a column today on Hogan, the lacrosse player out of Penn State, getting it done on the big stage. In your opinion, would you put Matt Ryan as the MVP over Tom Brady?
You know what? I think so. I think, and this is something that everyone's come to at different points this year, right? Appreciating what Atlanta's done on offense and appreciating what Matt Ryan has done this year, because we've always been in wait-and-see mode with that team because they never had the postseason success to match what they had done at any point in the regular season. And Matt Ryan had been a very good quarterback at times in his career. Had never really been a great one. And so even with him, we sort of handicapped his success by pointing to the fact that, well, you still haven't done it when it counts the most. And the MVP is a regular season award, so we would hope now that the right people that were watching, the people that could and should have been paying attention, understood that this Falcons offense was prolific the entire year, was near the tops, if not the top in the league for most of the season, and Matt Ryan was a huge reason why. You can point to all the weapons, but he's still got to make that engine go, and he was sensational this year. So between that, and you got to imagine the Tom Brady suspension will affect voting enough for some people to probably give this one to Matt Ryan.
Mike, Brian Mariano hanging out with Roger Weiland here. Now, over the past few years, I mean, I'm a Giants fan, so you've seen a lot of these teams even this year with Green Bay having the run they did, Pittsburgh with all the wins in a row they had. Ultimately, this season, do we have the two best teams in each conference playing each other in the Super Bowl?
I think so. I think as far as from start to finish, because we know this Patriots team, even before Tom Brady came back and started steamrolling through what was albeit not an overly difficult schedule for them, especially as far as quarterbacks faced, but a team that went 3-1 in his stead during that suspension. And then for Atlanta, we know they've been consistently great, maybe a bit overshadowed in the NFC just because of the season that the Dallas Cowboys had. They had the better storylines going into it, and I think that's part of this too, is that Atlanta, in addition to being a brand name that we didn't necessarily trust, also fell victim to a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back dominating that conference the way that they did for so much of the season. So I still think when you look at Atlanta all throughout the way, playing really complete football, Alex Mack, their pickup at center, sort of anchoring that offense in a way I didn't think they had last year, made them, I think, the perfect representative. And now certainly towards the end of the year when you want to play your best football, when every team builds up to it, Atlanta was that going away.
Talking with Mike Golic Jr. here on Big Board Sports. Mike hosts First and Last with Robin Lundberg every morning, 4 to 6, right here on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. I think we all agree that Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't see how you can. I won't. If there are some other quarterbacks in the discussion, but to me, it's got to be Brady. You agree with that? You okay with that?
Yeah, at this point, we were talking about that the other morning, Robin and I. That almost seems like a pretty lukewarm take at this point. Like, Brady's done so much, and we've seen so much now, especially as he continues to thrive in an NFL, absent his, overall, we won't say nemesis, but his chief competition maybe in this era, and Peyton Manning now. Tom Brady continues to be the ageless wonder. He continues to stack up these accomplishments, the conference championship appearances, now the most Super Bowl appearances of all time. He just, what more can we say about this guy that hasn't already been said?
Right. So I think we can all agree that Brady's the best, and he's going to try to win a fifth Super Bowl, which is incredible. The fact that they're going back, he and Belichick, for a seventh time. But let me ask you a follow-up to that, tell you about greatest. Who would you say right now, and would it be Julio Jones as the best receiver in the NFL?
Yeah, I said this at the beginning of the season, really, because you always have that conversation with basically him, Antonio Brown, and Odell Beckham Jr. I think A.J. Green probably should, when healthy, be included in that conversation. He's a freak of nature in his own right, but all these guys, great players, unreal production. But for me, the difference is just the physicality that Julio brings that you always hear you can't coach size and speed. But what we see him do consistently, whether it's going up for balls, whether it's plays like that long touchdown catch and run he had in the game against the Packers, I mean, he just does things that so few others are capable of. I'll always side with a guy that's got those measurables that just show up naturally for him. That's a built-in part of his game, and that allows him to have an extra portion of his skill set in addition to being a guy that runs great routes and is always going to give you max effort out there. We know he's playing a little hurt right now and still finding a way to be effective. I think it's got to be him. Hey,
Mike, I want to one more question from me. Your thoughts. I know you discussed this on your program today, but Steve Kerr slamming the NBA players on their all-star voting. I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, and it's tough because for me, when I was a player and knowing the guys I still know now around the league, one thing that you always hear is blowback from guys talking about these outside sources, whether it's things like Pro Football Focus or different media outlets trying to grade and judge players, and the players are always like, well, you can't possibly know what you're talking about. You don't know our game plans. You don't know all these things. And so players always want to be the ultimate judge and jury on this. So you finally get a chance and you spit the bit the way a lot of these guys did. It does look sort of bad in a time where now they're giving players a chance to vote and affect this. And to go out there and really show it doesn't mean much to you was a tough one for them.
So, Mike, now we have a lot of fantasy football, fantasy basketball, stuff like that now, but I was listening to your guys' program today, and you guys have a different fantasy thing going on now, and it's a Bachelorette fantasy. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I tell you, man, ESPN finally, ABC, another one of the Disney family of networks right there, but ESPN decided it so suited them to add the Bachelor Fantasy as part of their fantasy app. It's in the ESPN fantasy app right there next to baseball and basketball and football and everything else. So it really speaks to me because that's sort of become a side passion of mine. You could say I was mentored in that vein by the great Mel Kiper Jr., who's a tremendous Bachelor historian of sorts. That guy's football brain transfers over to The Bachelor in a beautiful way. So it's been an exciting first season of fantasy right now. We're 4 weeks in, and I'm just trying to tread water here, trying to bide my time and make my late season push.
Mike Golic Jr., keep up the great work, man. We appreciate a few minutes here on Big Board Sports, ESPN Radio in Albany.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.